I'd like to call the public hearing for April 30th, 2019 to order and convene the board as the Budget Committee. Thank you all for being here. For tonight's meeting, any item that will be voted on this evening has been posted as required by state law. This session is being recorded and will be posted on our website for viewing. The board has set aside this evening to provide an opportunity for community members to understand the district's proposed budget priorities, become acquainted with the district leaders who are leading the strands of work, and for the board to hear your views and opinions on the proposed budget priorities. This meeting is a new format for BPS. Following a general overview of the superintendent's proposed budget, we'll move into a World Cafe style of conversations with district leadership around the proposed priorities. Each station is organized using the restorative circle format. We have recorders ready to capture the conversation. These records will be synthesized and provided to the Board of Education to help inform our decision-making on the 2019-2020 budget. Board of Education members will be available at various stations or will be moving about the room. Following the World Cafe portion of the meeting, we will reconvene on this side of the hall to share back some of what we heard, what the board members heard, and to describe next step of the budget process. We will also vote on the business agenda. Childcare is available this evening on the other side of the doors. Going out there. We have interpreters with us tonight, and I'd like to invite them up at this time to introduce themselves and indicate where they'll be located in the room.
Russian interpreter, русский язык, переводчик русского языка. Я буду здесь спереди зала.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Andrés, intérprete de español. Si necesitas escuchar en español, por favor, levante su mano o voy a repetir.
Mi nombre es Obdulio Chavarría, yo también soy intérprete de español. El que necesite servicio de interpretación de español puede estar acá en esta esquina.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Gabriel, soy intérprete de español. Si necesitan también levantar la mano, pues estoy al fondo. Gracias.
Chào quý vị, tôi tên là Faubion, tôi sẽ là biên dịch tiếng Việt. Nếu quý vị cần giúp đỡ, tôi sẽ tiến hành sao để hỗ trợ.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Мария, я еще один русский переводчик, я буду ходить сейчас в зал. Спасибо.
Buenas tardes, Luisa Nama, intérprete de español. Voy a estar ahí atrás porque necesitan servicios de interpretación.
你们好，我是华语或者廣東話翻譯嘅海口。
Quý vị, tôi là Trâm, tôi là người công việc viên tiếng Việt. Nếu quý vị có cần giúp đỡ gì, tôi sẽ được cái thành sau.
大家好，我係歐聯外國國語同埋普通話，有需要嘅可以後面揾我嚟。
Okay, thank you. We will now convene as the Budget Committee, and Superintendent Guerrero, please introduce the budget overview.
Good evening, Chair Moore and directors, and to our audience that is here present and those that will be viewing. For this portion of tonight's agenda, we have a brief presentation. We're going to do our best to summarize and update regarding our ongoing district improvement plans for the coming school year, share with the audience our budget recommendation for fiscal year 2020, which is intended to align with this work, but really the main event is to encourage and invite all of you to engage with us in a collaborative dialogue, which means actively discussing some of the elements you might hear about or may have questions about. Staff will be here to dialogue with the community. Last week was the first time we shared a more comprehensive look at that. We had a 4-hour discussion meeting on that, which you're also welcome to view on our district YouTube channel. So we've taken some excerpts of some of that presentation that was provided last week, just to provide it in the way of an overview for the audience this evening. And we're going to attempt to go through it quickly. I'm going to be joined to talk about our ongoing journey as a school district, our efforts to transform not just our capacity for doing this work, but making sure that we have all those elements in place that are going to result in improved student outcomes. So tonight's presentation is going to talk about some of those elements, some of the work that is underway, and give you a sense of the work ahead, and how some of the investments that we're proposing will help us to address some of those priorities. So just to give a little bit of a rundown of sort of the roadmap as we see it, some of you may have heard or may have been participating in, for the last several months, a community-wide effort to define a vision for the future of PPS, but more specifically, what hopes we have for graduates of the school district. That's coming to a culmination. We invite everybody on May 11th to the OMSI to weigh in and provide any final feedback to the installation that will be on display there throughout the day. But we're coming close to publishing a future vision for the school district, which our board will have a final consideration of at the end of June. As a part of that, it's important for any organization to clarify its core values. And so I look forward to sort of elaborating on those. We think it's important in all our work to really underline the importance of anything we do, that we be conscious of and apply a racial equity and social justice lens to our work. So hopefully you will hear some ways that we're being conscious of that. And I know that our board is also going to be refreshing its own policy just to further kind of flag in this regard. And then it's also important to stipulate what are those goals for performance for our students and for the organization. And so we've had some long discussions about that, and it's something that by mid-August we intend to list out. We have work to do as the district's leaders, educational leaders, as well as those who support the work in our classrooms in business and operations, and in the way of articulating sort of a clear theory of action about the way that we intend to go about this work. And then most exciting, that we actually articulate what are those specific evidence-based strategies that we believe will improve conditions and supports at our schools to encourage student learning at the classroom, school, and the central office levels. So I mentioned a little bit about our vision. So for folks that aren't caught up, this is really intended to define our North Star as a school system. And it's very important that everybody weigh in. We're not the key client here. Our students and our families and the broader community is. And so I've been very pleased about the level of participation and the range of voices that have been included as a part of that process. A few key elements that will emerge from that vision is a graduate portrait. What are those skills and dispositions that we believe our graduates need to have, that we need to cultivate to be prepared to lead in this world? We also know that they, in order to be successful, have to have adults in a variety of supportive roles who possess some essential skills and ability to support our students in their growth, which also demands, by extension, that as a school system, we be prepared to make shifts that we need to make to retool and reimagine our schools to support our students and our adults along that journey. So I mentioned a little bit about our racial equity and social justice lens. This is a little bit about elaborating some of the goals in there. This is a commitment that Portland Public Schools has had for some time. There's a pledge in there that we look at it every sort of 5 years or so. That's something that we're looking to do in the coming months. But that doesn't stop us from applying that sensitivity to the work we do. So you see a bit of a timeline there, but what we want to make sure we do is we establish a vision and a strategic plan is that we look at it through that racial equity lens. So a little bit about our fiscal context, because I think it's going to be really important in framing tonight's conversation. We're in the state of Oregon, which isn't known for its generous funding of its public schools, and so there's a bit of educational debt there in resourcing pre-K-12 in particular for school systems to be enabled to lead this work. We're all quite familiar with that annual story, although we're optimistic that reality will begin to change, so that we go about doing the work that we know will make a difference for our students. At the moment, however, our expenses are outpacing our revenues. Despite the talk happening at the state level, we know that we won't probably experience any improvement for until a year out. So we are dealing with a cuts budget. You'll see some numbers here that'll begin to place sort of the extent of what we're looking at here. There's a few things that we've prioritized as key investments. The way that we're getting at those is by generally making some reductions at the central office and prioritizing a lot of competing work and trying to hold harmless as much as possible schools, particularly in our underserved communities. We also know that there's some lingering or historical need to really bolster a few areas in the school district to better serve our students. One of those includes special education, another one behavioral and student support, so that we're ready to respond to students' readiness to learn issues, as well as the necessary effort to continue developing a core curriculum for K-12 in various content areas across the school district, and the training and the coaching that our teachers deserve in that regard. So you're going to hear a little bit more about how some of those priorities play out, and some of those subject areas are going to be the focus of conversation this evening. But I'm going to turn the mic over to our Deputy Superintendent for Business and Operations, who's going to get a little bit more detailed into our budget numbers.
Good evening. My name is Claire Hertz, and I'm the Deputy Superintendent of Business and Operations. Good evening, Chair Moore, Superintendent Guerrero, and Board of Directors. Tonight I share with you some of the changes we've made in our budget process and in our documentation of our budget. We are following best practices established by Association of School Business Officials, where we are focused on transparency and fiscal integrity in presenting our budget to you and the community. You'll find in the budget document that we have an executive summary that includes the budget message from the superintendent and a comprehensive narrative overview of the budget. And then in the organizational section, you'll find that we have information about the district, the students, and its budget. We go on to a more detailed financial component, and then also some informational section that has statistics available to you. We are also using Government Finance Officers Association budget process. This is really also a best practices. While one is about the presentation in the document and what we provide in transparency, the other is more about partnership between instruction and finance in developing our resources in support of our strategic plan, of our vision of our district. So you will see a difference in how we present. We include student achievement data, student outcomes, looking at all the demographics of our student groups. Even in our school profile pages, you had a more detailed comparison from school to school. Our overall budget is $1.38 billion, and our budget has been structured under the guidelines of the Oregon Department of Education. And it represents a $130 million decrease compared to the 18-19 adopted budget. We have 5 major funds: the general fund for operations, the special revenue where it's more restricted and designated dollars for specific purposes, the debt service where we're paying back our bonded debt for building schools, the capital projects where we're continuing to modernize our schools. This Faubion Elementary is a beautiful example of that. And then also our self-insurance fund. We have invested in this budget as well. Not only did we have the shortfall of 17 million, we also repurposed 13 million in investments. And I think you'll hear more from Deputy Superintendent Curtis this evening, but this is a general overview of that and in terms of where we're putting our resources this year. You'll also notice that we're continuing, especially a highlight of the security upgrades for in every school from our bond program. In the bond program, continuing on, we are focusing on creating safe and healthy schools for all of our children. And you'll see that we are focusing on, there's $150 million in particular in support of this work, and we're implementing that with our 2017 bond. You ready?
Good evening, Yvonne Curtis, Deputy Superintendent of Instruction and School Communities. Nice to be with you, Chair Moore, Superintendent Guerrero, and Board. Tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about how we look at the budget in terms of our service to kids. First, we ensure that all schools have essential base staffing, and then we prioritize our schools through a tiered support model. We look at multiple factors: the health of the entire school, school climate. We look at the readiness of schools to have students succeed both academically and socially, emotionally. And then we strategically provide staff, services, professional development, and other resources. We'll start first with our staffing. We staff by FTE, which is an acronym that stands for full-time employee. We start first, if you look at the green circle, we start with ratio staffing by class size at the elementary level or K through 8 level, and then we use a ratio at the high school level. Then we add on an equity allocation, and this is based on the status of socioeconomic status and our formula for underserved students. There's multiple factors in that formula. And then we look at what kind of school-wide support do they need. What should administration look like, counseling and secretarial support, etc. In addition to that, then we see what else might we need to add for specific needs. For example, in this budget, we've added an additional 0.5 to our schools that have just a single site administrator. And so we have prioritized those according to the schools that have the greatest need. And some other ways that we utilize that specific support are in things like the TechSmart grant, Roosevelt Cluster Arts program, and then we go into the curriculum supports after that. This shows the schools and how they're leveled in terms of how they get the support. The CSI stands for Comprehensive School Improvement. TSI is Targeted School Improvement, and then Title I schools. You can see that Title I schools fall across all three of those columns. So when you look at the whole set of 33 schools, these are the schools that we're prioritizing, both service and resource too. So I'll mention a few of our curriculum and professional development supports. Our superintendent talked about developing our core curriculum. You sometimes will hear us talk about it as the Guaranteed and Viable Curriculum, GVC. What that means is that we want to ensure that all students, no matter what building, that they're all getting a guaranteed curriculum. So the first curriculum writing was in language arts, math, and science, which will be fully implemented next year. During that school year, we will continue doing the design and writing of the social studies, ethnic studies, health, and arts curriculum to be implemented the following year. We'll also be completing the balanced assessment framework. We intend to be using data, both quantitative and qualitative data, to inform us about what our schools need. And so the assessments give us that quantitative data. The outcomes that we're wanting to achieve is that teachers have what they need to ensure that they can teach grade level standards and that the students will be meeting or exceeding grade level standards. So the way we look at the whole system, if you think about everything we do in a multi-tiered system of supports, we see it as sort of an umbrella framework. And at the top tier, which you see on the top of this triangle, is all students getting access to basically the essential skills or the priority standards. We want to ensure that they all get that curriculum, they all get the opportunity to succeed. But sometimes students need a little more support in smaller groups, maybe different strategies. And so we look at the data, we make those adjustments, and we identify those students as needing some of those tier 2 supports. Sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes kids need very targeted interventions, and that's where you'd see tier 3. What we're implementing this year to make sure that it works, that we don't lose any students, and we make sure that every student is accounted for in terms of their success, we'll have school-wide teams and teacher teams. So where we spend resource is making sure that the cohort school, we have 2 cohorts. The first cohort includes all of those schools, those 33 schools I identified. They will be the first ones to get professional development, coaching, and help and support throughout the year to make sure that they're implementing this model. Special education is another area that we found the need to focus. We have had a growth of 425 students in the last couple of years. The percentage of students we have that are in the special education program or needing those services is 14% of our students. And so in order to meet their needs, we are adding additional focused classrooms focused on the specific identification that the students need their support in. We're also making sure that all of the paraeducators that support these students in their academics and all of their supports get the training that they need so that they're prepared. And then we also are adding improvement to our transition program, which is the program that serves our 18 to 21-year-olds. We've also invested in our social emotional supports. Not all of our children come to school really ready to learn, and we have to differentiate not only the academic supports, but also the social emotional supports. So we have curriculum for social emotional learning in 12 of our schools this year. Next year we will be going through an evaluation process to see if we're getting the results that we intend to get with that curriculum, and then we will be adding 4 more schools. We will also be increasing our contracts with culturally responsive community mental health and substance use support.
Well, that's intended to give a quick overview. The full presentation is posted on the PPS website, but one of the ways that we try to sort of end our presentation last week is to have us all think about what the future could hold for our students and for our community. And one primary driver is that we're working towards realizing that North Star, that our vision will be for us. How do we strategically apply any and every resource that comes to the school system in service of getting every one of our students to when they walk across the stage, possess those skills and dispositions as students. The way we intend to get there, it will be through a deliberate and sequenced roadmap as captured through a series of multi-year strategic plans. We know that we welcome the accountability, so we want to set some performance targets for ourselves in all of these areas and have a way to share our progress through a transparent, balanced scorecard. So we're going to continue defining clarity in all of the academic and behavioral work that we do, as well as strengthen our operational core functions in service of our schools. There's some additional work that is going on simultaneously. we won't go into tonight, but that we're also excited about. You may have heard about our work in making sure our students have equitable access across all the disciplines in arts education. We're excited about our college and career readiness work and making sure that there's equitable access to all the disciplines in CTE at every one of our comprehensives. And of urgent concern to us is making sure that we go full throttle in middle school redesign, hopefully with the benefit of resources that come to the school system a year from now. So that doesn't give us a lot of time to do some deliberate planning and continue to expand our task force to look at those constraints we currently have and to reimagine time and schedules to make sure no student has to make a choice between getting specialized services or arts or language. So stay tuned for more on that. We're also want to be a school system that defines the kinds of experiences that our students will have from pre-K to 12, and so we want to describe for the community and collaborate with stakeholders around what some of those signature practices or experiential learning will be a guarantee for every student, no matter what school they attend. We're moving forward on our school modernization work. We're looking forward to the grand opening at Grant High School and beginning to move forward on breaking ground for Kellogg. And we have some outstanding work that needs to move forward in the areas of more inclusive practices in our schools, making sure we're addressing the specialized needs of our dyslexic students and our talented and gifted students. We want to make sure as we're developing our science curriculum that we're integrating those topics surrounding climate justice and that we expand our student supports in areas like mindfulness that help our students stay focused in school. All of these efforts in the future will be aimed at narrowing those opportunity gaps. We won't be able to do that work alone, so we'll continue cultivating relationships with community, our business and philanthropic partners as well. So all of that is intended to continue growing and gaining strength as a school district so we can be that premier school system that we want to be. So a little bit about how we're going to format this evening by our Chief of Engagement, Jonathan Garcia, and team and staff and volunteers. Thank you for the setup tonight.
Thank you. So thank you all for being here. Everybody should have had access, or has access to this document. It's called 2019-20 Proposed Budget Hearing and Community Forum. It was in the front if you don't have it. This one will outline both the agenda, some shared agreements, and the budget topics. So as you can see tonight, there are 10 stations here on your left, and each station is numbered on this document with a heading and a little description of those stations. So in each of those stations, you'll have one of our senior leaders hosting each table. They will share for about 5 minutes or less a quick overview of what you heard. You should also have access. If you have already picked up this document labeled 1920 Proposed Budget Highlights, it has a lot of the information, or most of this information, as well. And so those are the two documents that you use for the evening. So in a few seconds, we'll get up, identify the station that you're interested in the first round, make your way to that station. We also have drinks and small hors d'oeuvres out there for you. So again, make your way to a station. In 25 minutes or so, we will switch. You'll have a chance to either stay at that station if you're wanting to engage in that conversation for another round, or identify a new station to talk or have more conversations. And again, we'll do that a third time, and then we'll come back. So at this point, it seems like everybody's getting up, so in 5 minutes, we'll get started.
Trying to feel all that. Was that right? Okay. So I'm hoping that's not
It's really the right environment for them to support you. So yes, it is a process that will continue to evolve as our kids start to learn higher and higher levels.
Readiness, including CTE, but also how we address the needs of a population of historically marginalized students.
Sometimes students who need additional supports are often pulled out during that core instruction time.
my daughter's class. They had 3 teachers this year. One quit halfway through because she couldn't control the class. class, and then there was another substitute who left, and now they're on their third teacher.
We have the general fund that we talked about. This is our projection for the next several years and where the money is going, where the spending is going, just to give the community a general idea of where we're heading.
Okay, for those of you who are interested, we're going to reconvene as a budget committee, and I want to invite my colleagues to share any insights that they had over the last couple of hours, and any thoughts? Okay, I'll say something. I thought that this was a much more interesting and engaging way to interact with the public around the budget. And I heard some really interesting conversation. I went to 3 different stations. Actually 4 different stations, and it was an opportunity for parents and teachers and community members to ask some really good questions and get some clear answers. So I thought this was, I thought it was good. I'll be very curious to hear the kind of feedback that we get. This has been kind of an experiment, so please let us know what you thought about this and whether you thought this was a more productive way to engage with the budget conversation. You know where we live, so let us know.
Rita, I think, to answer the question, about whether this was a more productive way to engage in the budget conversation, I talked with people who actually felt like they understood the budget document and that they had questions based on leafing through and things that they'd seen, and that sounds like that should be fundamental to the process, but I think historically it's been really frustrating for regular people, including board members, to make a lot of sense out of the way that the budget was presented. And so I think I met a few people who came tonight because they had specific questions or interests, and they had an opportunity to talk to the professionals who were, involved with or leading that work. And a lot more fruitful than these exercises have been in the past, and a lot more helpful to us as board members in terms of the concerns that people were bringing up.
So I'll just add, so this is my 6th budget, and I like the format. I think it also is a function of the situation we're in that I've had a budget year where we're going to cut 5 weeks off the school year, which is for a host of no good choices, and I think that in addition to the budget document being laid out in a pretty transparent way, that we're also in I think a much better budget situation than most other districts, and I think what allowed us is we actually can have some great conversations. And what I found out into a number of different circles is that most of the conversations actually weren't about the budget, but were more about the programmatic piece. And to me, the aha moment was we shouldn't be just doing this about the budget, around the budget time, but there's a real thirst for information from parents, teachers, and other staff who are here tonight to know more about where the district's going, the types of sports, have deeper conversations that aren't overly structured or confrontational, and that I think our whole community would benefit from more of these conversations where we can all learn a lot. I learned a lot, not only listening to the presenters, but also listening to the questions that were asked by parents, students, community members, teachers. So I really appreciate everybody coming tonight because I think it made for a very rich conversation.
Yes, a couple of specific things came up around school staffing, and particularly the 4-5 blends. Definitions, what's CSI, what's TSI, how does that work? Is that our term, is that somebody else's term? So those are a couple of opportunities to get more information out. A lot of discussion about what happens if we get that one more kid and so now we get an extra teacher. Is that going to be in mid-October, which is not exactly prime hiring season? So how do we deal with that better up front? And just that whole balancing act of now this is hiring season now, and we don't know exactly how things are going to shake out because darn it, people move and things happen. So and we're making a guess about what the exact enrollment is going to be next fall compared to what it is now. And another concern from a couple of schools was if parents at the school are feeling like it's not up to snuff and are trying to get out of the school, and that leads to lower enrollment, which leads to lower staffing. And we've seen that before over the years, is that vicious cycle that can step in, and how do we address that directly?
I concur with Julia, board member from Meadowbirds, that the groups that I was in, I went to special education, MTSS, and one on curriculum. The questions seemed more on the programs and services as well. And I think that in particular to those topics, I think we need to do a lot more dialogues, particularly around what special education means and the varying options and this whole continuum of services that we provide for all students in the district. So, just really clarifying what those services are and how it's linked to MTSS. And that was something that parents wanted to understand. If children aren't qualified for special education, but they're struggling in a class, then what do we do? And that's the whole idea around multi-tiered support systems. So a kind of understanding that we need to connect the dots, I think, for the public to understand that this whole continuum beyond special education, and then how through general education and the MTSS tiered supports also will help students when they first are struggling, and we support them with the right intensity of instruction. So I think there's a lot of dialogue to do, but this process really helped me at least to see some areas that were unclear to parents and teachers alike. It was good.
Yeah, and I agree. It's, this kind of forum and the kind of meetings that we did in the visioning process, let's just keep doing that. It really helps people connect on a much more down-to-earth, personal, the 3-minute presentation at a public comment at a board. It's good, we get information, but it's not a dialogue or a discussion, and we need more of that. It helps. We get better information out, and I appreciate the kind of big meetings of come one, come all, but also doing targeted meetings, especially around parents and community members who aren't native English speakers, and specific groups like the vision sessions we did with parents of students receiving special ed services, I think, were really well received, and so to continue along that vein would be really helpful.
Okay, I do just want to remind everybody, lest you forget, this is a cut budget. We're looking at a $17 million shortfall. We have a structural problem in this state. The state does not provide enough funding to support public education. We haven't for a very long time. We're now pushing 30 years in. And I think it's a testament to the work that the superintendent and his staff have put into this budget that we are not feeling a catastrophic impact of this $17 million shortfall. But make no mistake, we cannot continue to educate our students if the state is not going to provide us with adequate resources. The legislature is right now considering a revenue package, including new taxes on the business sector. And if you are interested in advocating for more state funding, now is the time. Get your cards and letters to your legislator. And emails, and phone calls.
Actually,
and the governor.
The House is probably expected to vote on the Student Success Act tomorrow, so email or call. Or first thing in the morning.
It's only 8:30 p.m. The night is young. Plenty of time. Okay. Okay, so if nobody else has anything, okay, I am now going to recess the board from the budget committee. And do I have to open it as a regular board meeting? Okay. We'll now move on to the business agenda. At this time, the board will vote on its business agenda. Ms. Powell, are there any changes to the business agenda or not? Okay, do I have a motion and a second to adopt the business agenda?
So moved.
Director Constant moves, Director Esparza-Brown seconds the motion to adopt the business agenda. Is there any public comment? Okay, is there any board discussion?
I had a question about a contract, but do we not have access to it? Sorry, I didn't know there was a board meeting tonight. Is Stephanie Soden still not here?
You may have the same question.
So I had a question about one of the specific contracts that's in your area, what time period it was for? So normally I would have my computer and I could have just looked at it. It's the time period for the David Roy contract. There's a $200,000 contract and then an amendment. Is that 260 from the very beginning of the start of the work, or is that 260 from?
260 from the beginning, and we're wanting the amendment to extend through the end of October, although we do not yet have funding for all of those months, but we leave us open for project work to be assigned to David if funding for the project is available.
So the 260 that was the original contract is what time period? Again, I'm sorry, normally I have my computer and I can just look it up.
Is it the 75 that is the 6-month period that is billed here?
Yes. Yeah. Right, but I just wonder what it's built on 260. What was the time period of the 260? Was that a year or a year and a half or?
I believe, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, Director Byrne Edwards, I believe it was March or April of 2018 when it started, so it's from that point, last spring.
So more than 260 over an annualized basis.
260 is with the 75.
Is it the 75 includes the 260?
260 includes the 75, and we believe it commenced around March of 2018.
Okay, great.
That's 18 months.
Thank you. key thing is the 75 being part of the 260.
It is, sorry. Figure out.
I have a different question. There's 2 contracts on here for translation services, interpretation services. Is that because of capacity of each one? So we have 2 different providers?
Those are in response to an RFP that we did to supplement our translation and interpretation services. So we have contracts expiring and are signing the new contracts to help supplement that work.
One of those doesn't have the capacity to do all the work that we need, or it's just curious why 2 and not 1?
That's correct. We have to have multiple providers in order to meet the capacity of different business needs.
Okay.
So I just wanted to follow up. Is that an hourly contract or a monthly retainer for the data worker contract?
It's based on an hourly rate, and the work would be assigned per project. We have 3 different projects right now that we would be assigning to him.
Okay, any other comments? The board will now vote on the business agenda. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please say no. Any abstentions? The business agenda is approved by a vote of 7-0. And, okay. The next meeting of the board will be a work session on May 7th. The next regular meeting of the board will be held on May 14th at the district central office. That meeting will also include a 2-hour budget hearing using the traditional format of public comment. So, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you everybody for coming.